It's 7 o'clock and we'll get started. Welcome to everyone in the audience here in the booth building and to everyone at home joining us through Zoom. My name is Andrew Samwell. I'm the superintendent of schools, and tonight we have our first budget consultation for the 2025-2026 school year. And so a couple of things I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian and Smalleq speaking peoples. Indeed, honored and a privilege to be here on this land and to work on this project, which is the budget for our school children, of which 65% of our students approximately are Indigenous. And we have a number of things we're going to share with you tonight to talk about our priorities and the budget process. And first, I'll turn this over to our Secretary Treasurer, Enrique Vasquez, and Brittany Verissimo, who is our Director of Finance.
Thank you, Andrew. Hi, how are you?
Great.
Yes, perfect. Do you mind sharing the? Okay. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Thank you to Brittany, because of course she has been a person that has been helping me on putting together this presentation. Can you go to the next slide? So the agenda for today is we are going to go over the strategic plan priorities, the student completion rates, budget timelines, the ABC meeting dates, the 10-year enrollment trends, the 2024 December operations statement, the 24-25 amended operating grant, the 25-26 budget pressures, possibilities, next steps. Again, this conversation is mainly for the 25-26 budget. So,
Thank you, Enrique. So we have a number of things that just to set the context, the Board of Trustees set a strategic plan, and it is from the strategic plan that we reference all budget things. So the process is we look at our strategic plan, we say, where does the money fit to enable these priorities? And our priorities, and many of you have heard this before, our priority is on literacy and numeracy, and with a vision towards equity. We are looking at our completion rates need to be equitable, and we have truth and reconciliation is a priority. We think that's one of the pillars of how we will achieve that. And then in all this context, we look at our situation and we say mental health literacy is very, very important for our student population. So these are the main priorities. And then from that, we have a number of sub priorities that we work from. But when we look at making budget decisions, it's this frame, this strategic plan is what we look at to make those decisions. There are other things that go into making the decisions, and some of them are things like the Ministry of Education gives a mandate. And recently with the newly elected government, they've indicated to us by letter, these are the priorities of the Ministry of Education, which means these are also folded in with our priorities. So back to Enrique.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Actually, this is Sandy Bond that is going to help us with the next 3 slides.
Thank you, Enrique. And as Andrew was saying, our strategic goal priorities really guide us, that we're doing in our school district. And so we wanted to just share tonight how, even though we are less resourced than we'd like to be, we're finding some success with our completion rates. And if you look at the graph that's up on the screen, this data now includes last year. The data that is in our annual Enhancing Student Learning Plan on the website does not include last year because the data didn't even come out till this November. So if you look at the completion rates on the screen, we are at, for all students, 92% completion. For Indigenous students, 82%, which is up from 73% last year for Indigenous students. And for students with diverse abilities and disabilities, we're at 70%, which is up from 62% last year. So we've seen growth and we're really excited about that. That doesn't mean that we're done. We have work to do still, much work. But if you go to the next slide, this slide, you can't really see the top of it very well, but this is the completion rate over time for Indigenous students and BC residents. So the yellow are BC residents and the blue is Indigenous students. And you can see last year, 22-23, we were at 73%, and this year we're up just over 80%. So we've seen growth there. And on the next graph, this is our completion rate over time for students with disabilities or diverse abilities. And again, we're seeing some growth there. So it's the trend, we're trending up, which is always a good sign. So strategies that we're putting in place, we want to continue with those strategies for sure and think about other ways to improve. And I guess the other thing that I wanted to say before I turn it back is that equity is our first priority, and our schools are working really hard at looking at what kind of barriers exist in our schools for our students and making sure that things are equitable. And one of the ministry mandates is that we pay attention to our graduation rates, in particular for priority groups like our Indigenous students, children in care, and students with diverse abilities and disabilities. Now, the children in care data does not usually get shown because it's masked, but the numbers are too low, but yeah. We'll look into that.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Thank you. So next, I will just go over the budget timelines. So first we just want to bring to everyone's attention, that there's been a change
because he had yesterday.
the operating grant this year, so it's really unusual for the ministry to do this.
But for that,
So usually, the ministry announces their recalculated operating grant funding in mid-December. This year it was delayed. We actually just got the announcement today. So then, of course, this does impact our 24-25 current year amended budget. And if you go to the next slide, I can show you how we're affected by that. So this top portion of the slide, you're probably pretty familiar with because I go over it every budget meeting. There's just been a change to this one. So usually that end deadline of when the budget is due to the ministry is usually February 28th. So due to their delay in announcement, they've actually allowed us more time to submit that. So we have till March 28th for our current year amended budget. And then, so our meeting tonight, again, is focused on our preliminary budget for next year. So that's that bottom portion of the timeline. So typically, between January and March, we're planning for next school year already. This includes input received from the board, staff, partner groups, and public. And then in March and April, we present our budget assumptions to the Finance and Building Committee and the board and the staff for review and input on significant budget changes. And between May and June, the finalized budget is presented to the board for 3 readings. Pass it back on to Enrique.
Thank you. So can you go to the next slide, please? So here is the annual budget consultation meeting dates. So we start today, 28. The next meeting is on March 4. And it's going to be the working session with board, senior staff, and principals by principals to discuss potential budget changes. On April 7, we're going to report back to public on input received and ministry funding and proposed budget changes. On April 15, We have an open board meeting to do the first budget by law reading, and on March 6th, we're going to do the second and third budget by law reading. And again, the deadline is June 30th, and so there is a long way to go. So excited to next one. So, because as Brittany mentioned, the ministry was delayed the dates to provide information about the operating grant for this year. We don't have the amended information to start talking about the budget for next year. However, what I wanted to present to you today is the most recent financial statement of operations. This is December 2024. And the reason I wanted to show this information, the financial information, is that right now, as of December, everything seems to be under budget. Talking about the revenues, the expenses there are, sorry, so let me go back and try to explain how this statement is presented. This is an unaudited statement of operations related just to the general operating grant. In the top left side, we have the revenue section. In the middle of the report, we have the expenses, we have salaries, teachers, and so on. And at the bottom of the report, we have the surplus or deficit. We know that the target is break even normally, right? Public sector. And then in the second column, I'm gonna mute all. Yes. So in the second column, what we can see is the year-to-date budget. Again, those numbers are as of December 2024. Then the next column is the actual information. And then we have a variance. The following column shows the variances. Positives is ahead of budget, negatives is behind budget, or unfavorable variance. And then the percentage. And the last column, we have the preliminary annual budget. So in the big scheme of things, what we see is our expected revenues for this fiscal year is $29.2 million in revenues. And again, the expectation based on the work that was done last year around this time, it is a deficit of $268,000. That portion of that, or that amount, was going to be covered with reserves from previous years. That is, like, in a nutshell, what we can see in the last column. That is what we are targeting. What we see as of December 2024 is revenues are pretty much on track when compared to budget, and expenses bottom line is also pretty much the targeted expenses. So what I see is with our result is at the end of December, $25,000 better than expected. Now, it's important to say that, of course, that preliminary annual budget was prepared considering some assumptions that we believe at that time. It's just a budget. It's an estimation of what we believe was the revenues and expenses that we were pointing for. Now, because we have received the information from the ministry, we need to go back and recalculate the revenues and also the expenses, because we know that many things have changed since a year ago. So, however, again, the reason I wanted to present this statement to you is to say, I think the strategies that Andrew and the team, the senior leadership team, and of course the principals and staff are working. I know that we have limited resources. And the bad news, and I have to share it with you because the ministry shared with all of us, is that, and today we were told the same, the school districts have to find a way to maximize the resources. Do not expect that suddenly we're going to receive 15% increase in revenues. That is not going to happen. Yes, ma'am. I get it. So bottom line, and I need to share that with you because I understand that there are many needs and we need you as, part of the school district, and, with many ideas and ways to do different things. I can tell you from my side of things, what I'm trying to do is identify areas to improve. And I have a couple of them. I already shared some of them with my team, Dandy, of course. And anyways, so that's the reason I just wanted to show that slide to you. Can we go to the next one, please?
So yeah, we just wanted to show this graph just to show you the trends in our enrollments. So as you can see, for the past few years, it's been pretty stable. But I just want to remind everyone that our enrollment is a big factor into our operating grant calculation. So our student FTE is what drives our revenue. So on this next slide, it's the 24-25 amended budget operating grant comparison. So yeah, as we mentioned a couple times now, we just received the announcement today, so that's why it says draft on there, just because we haven't had a chance to fully go through everything in detail yet. But this slide is just showing you the operating grant from the ministry that we received. So that first column is the preliminary budget, and then the second column is our draft amended budget per today's announcement. And then that third column is just showing you the change in the dollars. So if you just look at the bottom line on the very far right-hand side, it's showing an increase of 171,000. And then I'll just really quickly go through. So you can see a big portion of this is due to salary differential. So this is a calculation that the ministry does based off of our average salary costs. So they take a look at our average salary cost as of school district 52 in comparison with all school districts. And then based off that, they have their calculation and they calculate that amount for us. And then, so that's just on top of our regular operating grant that they receive, or that we received. And then enrollment decline, we received a little bit extra from that as well. To put in a nutshell really briefly, this is due to any enrollment decline that we receive. Instead of just taking a big chunk from us at once, this kind of helps even that out a little bit. And then the labor settlement funding is another larger number on there. So that one, just a reminder, is based off of labor settlement funding. So basically increases that we have for payroll.
Now, something that I would like to mention, thank you, is that, we can spend hours and hours going through this, the way the ministry calculates the grants. So this is just the general operating grant. Couple of things to consider. The majority of the money comes based on, this calculation comes from what? From the number of students that you have. So the previous slide, I think we see the trend. And, I think some years ago, and you know this better than I, we used to have more than 2,000 students. Right now, thank you. So right now we are in the range of 1,800,
20.
just over 20, exactly.
Yeah, maybe 20.
So that is,
13.
thank you. So it's pretty easy, right? Like, where can we get money from? Is bring more students. I don't know what else we can do. You are the experts there. But again, we are limited. If we don't have more students, we are not going to get more money, is basically. So there are some, parameters there, but again, in a nutshell, is if we are able to bring more students to the school district, voila, this year was, I think the average, they were talking about like $13,000 per student, around that, I think it's right. So is that the way that the ministry calculates that? Other than that is, again, efficiencies. And you know that better than me. So I think we can move to the next one.
I just wanted to add, sorry, just one more thing to the prior slide. I also just wanted to mention, not to get excited, I know it looks on this slide like if we're receiving 171,000 extra funding.
That is the good news.
Yeah, so
We're
that's
going to
the-
receive $171,000 more. Here's the bad news. Thank you.
So don't get too excited, I guess, basically on that, because that doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, we have an extra 171,000 to spend. That's not the case. So again, just to put it really briefly in simplistic form, because of that increase, you can see right on here, a large portion of it is due to salary differential. What that means is that our salary is higher than expected as well, right? So they kind of offset each other.
So basically what happens, and I'm just learning this kind of calculations that the ministry does, but what they do, and correct me if I am wrong, is they come with an average salary across the province, right? So because we're in north part of BC, technically our salaries tends to be higher than the average. So that is the reason they say, okay, you know what, the school district, because salaries are higher over there, we need to come with this calculation, and we add this 171,000. But basically what it means is, yeah, we're receiving that money because it's an adjustment, because they know that our salaries tend to be a little bit higher. But yeah, that is the reason. So it's a good news, but it is here's the accountant talking, yeah? So don't get so excited.
And also just to add to that too, so part of the calculation does also take into account, like, let's use teachers, for example, if we, just as an example, have a higher amount of teachers that maybe are high up on the scale, that will obviously bring up our average too, compared to maybe a school district that has newer teachers. And I also just want to remind everyone too, so again, the preliminary budget for the current year, we do a year ago. So a lot has changed even in regards to our salary. So that's another thing to take into consideration as well. So again, this is just looking at operating grant, not taking into consideration the amended salary budget.
And it's, you know, again, it's of course, as you may know, the majority of our expenses come from where everybody knows that, right? Salaries, benefits, that is around 90%, I believe, of our total expenses. And also we have, you know, other expenses like supplies and services. So the idea is also for me is, you know, try to identify areas to improve, well, to accounting team, not just me, right? But yeah, so I guess we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you.
So this next slide is the 25-26 budget pressures. So again, we're still working on the budget, talking this through with the team. But this is our listing right now at this time. So we've been talking about inflation, just general inflation all around. So inflation happens, as we know, but we're not necessarily that inflation cause.
And let me just give some context here. I think yesterday they disclosed the inflation for 2024, and if my memory serves, it's around 1.8%. A year ago was around 3.8 or 9. So seems like everything is going better, you tell me. But you know, a bottom line is at least inflation was expected for 2024 was, you know, I guess under the 2%. Normally, you know, any government is targeting a 2% inflation. So we'll see what the ministry is planning to do that to cover at least inflation. But again, the message was pretty clear today. Do not expect that you are going to receive increases in the grants, operating grants for next year, significant increases.
Enrollment, we just like to always include on here, even though our enrollment is stable, it is a big driving factor. So it depends on our enrollment next year. Potential IT upgrades. So,
You can talk about it.
yeah, we're gonna go to him if we have any questions. But IT upgrades, generally speaking, we haven't increased our IT budget for a while, but we do always need upgrades, as Dinesh can speak to. And part of this too is our cybersecurity. So that's another area where we would like to invest in. but we haven't set aside the budget for that in the past recently. You want to add anything?
I think with the increased cyber security that's happening within the province, especially in the school district with the smaller admin that can take care of it, I think it's really important that we consider adding funds towards the increase in the security within the school system. And also, I think for a couple of years, almost 3 years, I think the IT budget has been reduced. So we've been running thin and using the older technology in the classroom for students. So I think it's really time to add cost. And also we know that the Windows 10, excuse me, is coming to an end in October, and many and there will have no support coming, security support. So it is recommended that we go to Windows 11, and I think that would also includes the cost, hardware cost for replacement for entire school district. So yes.
So here is the beauty about teamwork, right? Is hopefully, I know you probably already have a list of probably needs and wants. And hopefully you also can help us to identify the areas like, you know what, Enrique, Brittany, Andrew, Sandy, we know that we're spending here, but maybe if we do this, if we do that, we can change things around. You know, the way I see it is at the end of the day is for the students. That is what I'm trying to help here. And I think it's the reason everybody is here. Try to find ways to improve our students. The pieces where I can help, I can tell you, potential ERP system upgrade. I have been working with our current system, and I will leave it like there is a ways to improve it. And I will be working with my team on that for reporting, speed up processes, you name it. Like I think there is a great opportunity for my team, for me to spend time on that, trying to negotiate. I will tell you to keep at least not, hopefully do not increase the cost for a software, but that is on me. That is, I know is 100% on me, on my team. There are other areas where hopefully you can help us to find those efficiencies, but so the other budget pressure.
Yeah, just in regards, just for clarification, for those of you who don't know, the ERP system is our accounting software, our payroll software, our HR, and our accounts payable. So yes, it is outdated. They do have a modernized version that they've been trying to get us to upgrade to. But as you know from prior budget meetings, we've kind of just put it off to the side because it hasn't been the main priority. But it is definitely time to look at it again. Because like Enrique mentioned, we can have a lot of efficiencies if we were to upgrade this.
I would say, especially with information, the quality of information that you may need at some point is just let us know, and also is probably an area that we can help in the future. So the next one.
So the next one on the list is climate change. We've just put in brackets there a couple examples. So for example, snow removal, which we tend to talk about year after year as well. That's always an unknown when we're creating our budget. It's hard to predict how much snow we'll get next year. And it is a significant cost. I'd say if we do have a lot of snow, it does cost a lot to remove it.
Same with utilities.
Yeah.
So I guess everybody pays utilities in this. So yeah, so we know that, you know, the winter sometimes are expensive in regarding utilities. And the last one is the new ministerial legislation, right?
Yeah. So for this one, we're just taking into consideration that the ministry always has new legislation, things they would like us to do, but not necessarily funding to offset that. I don't know if you guys want to add anything in more details.
Well, again, those are the things that we cannot say no. we have to do it, we have to find ways to do it. Of course, I can tell you, today, when we were talking to the Ministry of Education, there were some conversations, some feedback about, we have these needs. And also they said, let us know about your needs. We'll see if we can, again, at least have that conversation with the ministry.
One of the examples used today too is, for example, how we're Ministry of Education and Childcare. So we're expected now before and after school care, but a lot of us are just doing off the side of our desk in school districts. And so how to sustain that, I guess, for the long term. Next slide. So this is our 25-26 possibilities. Again, this is just our starting point. We're still having discussions around all of this. So the top one is taking a closer look at our special purpose funding. So again, just doing a really hard look at what we're charging to our special purpose funding. So again, a reminder for those who aren't familiar, our special purpose funding is a separate set of funding compared to our operating grant. So this is above and beyond. Special purpose funding is focused on a specific area. So it'll be a specific program, and sometimes they'll give you guidelines on how you need to spend that funding. So just taking a look, maybe seeing if we can take anything that we're currently charging to our operating grant, our operating funding, sorry, for example, and then moving it over into special purpose, just to help us in balancing our operating budget.
Now, again, there are specific rules. It's like not just because we want to move things around. So we have to be careful with that. But again, there's a possibility to maximize the operating grant.
Yeah. The next one, just additional grants. So just seeing what other grants are out there that we can apply for. Additional sources of revenues. So just again, thinking about other ways how we can bring money in, being creative, because like Enrique said, the ministry is pretty clear that we don't get enough funding from them. We have to be creative with our funding that we do receive. We put as an example on there our commercial kitchen. So we've had some discussions on how we can maybe create sources of revenue from that. For example, just providing meals to other communities around and generating some revenue from that. You want to add anything to that, Andrew?
Just many of you are aware that we have in this building a leading edge commercial kitchen that is under construction, and it was paid for, pretty much 99% of it was paid for by grants from external sources. And there will be a grand opening to acknowledge many of those funders, but it's over $300,000 that was raised. And the capacity of that kitchen is, we can feed not only the 400 or 500 students, is Jit here, we have 500, we provide about 500 meals a day for the lunch program, but this kitchen will also be doing the snacks for the before and after school care programs, or any childcare centers that we're running, that will all be produced in the kitchen here and then distributed. So it might be a way of working with our community partners to say we can provide meals to perhaps people who aren't able to get out of their houses. And we're following the model that's done in other communities where you do have such a facility with excess capacity, and that's what we'll have.
Do you want to touch on the next one as well?
Property development, yeah, the board currently, we have a number of properties that no longer have schools on them. The schools have been demolished, they've been removed. And the board is looking at possibilities to lease out the property, or we have some examples where we do have a small lease with a company that's storing some equipment, and we receive a small amount from that, but it's like every little bit helps. And we have 2 other properties right now that are unused that we're looking at ideas to see if that can meet the needs of the community, because we currently don't have a school on it. So that's another possibility for revenue.
And the last one, just potential reductions. So of course, when we're looking at the budget, we're always taking into consideration anywhere where we can make reductions to save money. Because we need to make a balanced budget at the end of the day.
Okay, so what are the next steps? So if we go to the next slide. we go back to the meeting date. So the next one is on March 4th. We're going to have at 7 p.m. a working session with board senior staff, principals, and by principals to discuss potential budget changes. The other ones we already covered. So, and the next one, the public input.
The next slide. So we have a 25-26 online survey link on our rupertschools.ca website. It is available now. If you're finding that the link does not work, just delete your cache, is that
Yes.
right? Yeah, on your internet browser and refresh and then go to the website again and the updated link should be there. So it's actually on our homepage, just scrolling down just a little bit and you'll see it right there. And the submission deadline for this is March 31st at 4 p.m.
And the last one. Let's open the door for any questions.
Can you see if any hands are up?
Once. Twice. Okay.
I guess I have a comment or a question.
Yeah, comments, yeah.
My name is Denise Session. I'm the chair on the Indigenous Education Council. And in the past, they have been a partner in the ABC meetings. And so I don't really see that in the upcoming meetings as being a partner in those. So I have a question if that's happening or if there's consultation. Or, yeah.
Thank you. I can answer that. Yeah. What we're doing is we've changed the budget process from the past on how we had our meetings. Now, what we will do is, Indigenous said you will be invited, with Roberta to it's the next meeting in March, which is the partner group. So we're going to spend all day with just the presidents, the chairs of the IOUE, peer DTU, Principals Association, and you and Roberta, and we go over. And DPAC, yes. And we do the fine tooth comb over the complete budget, very open and transparent. And we also show the 3-year projections that the ministry asks us to just do a peek over 3 years if your funding didn't change. So we like to share that too, because that gives us like, okay, so this year, what are we doing? Next year, what does it look like in the 3rd year? But it gives us that look at, hopefully, well, we'll almost have the amended budget done by then. And again, for many people, what is an amended budget? Sorry, Denise, if I can take a minute. The amended budget, a lot of people, the amended budget, and why is it important? The amended budget is this board passed a budget that was basically, it was adopted last June. And so the budget is set. This is what it is. But we have expenses, we have things that come up and we pay for them. And so now we're looking right now at every month, what are we plus and minuses so that we can project between now and the end of June. That's what the amended budget does, is it lets you know like, whoa, you're way out of budget from what the board has told you to spend. And so we have to look at, okay, we in the past, as you recall, we have had in February and March, we've been telling the schools, don't spend another cent. We're out of money. Like that's it, all the paper you got. We don't want to do that. So by prudent planning, we make sure we have more than enough money to cover it till the end of the year. So that's the amended budget. And that's why it's so important. So when we meet, back to the meeting, this is a direct meeting that we didn't have in the past, where we meet directly with you to say, let's go over all the books. And then this is, as Enrique saying, this is where we work together to plan what can we do to ensure that our kids get, the best education they can.
I guess when I read the list and then it like specifically said principals, vice principals, even though it says partner groups, it didn't actually specify.
Yeah, it should say rights holders as well.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. James Horn. Sorry.
Here we go, unmuted. Hey, thank you for that presentation. I see that I know that we've been putting off the accounting software for a while, for many years now. And IT, so Dinesh is also talking about needing to do upgrades at the same time. How much monies are we talking about? Maybe this question can come back to us later, but perhaps we should be considering, because we have been pushing this back, perhaps we should be considering it to at least put some monies aside, so in the future, there's not such a burden when it comes to budget time. Maybe that as a consideration.
Yeah, thank you for your comment, trustee Horn. Yeah, I think we are in the part of the year that this is going to be a really dynamic process where again, like in the case of our accounting software, Brittany and I have been working with the team. For me, first of all, understand how it works. And, Brittany is pretty familiar with all the, ins and outs. So now is, again, that is on us for the following months to go and do our best to, talk to our partner. And then we also have our expert, Dinesh, and, we have had conversations about the needs that the school district has. So again, this is a moment where we can work together and find the best way to do our job.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Tristan Higginson. I'm the DPAC rep on the CHSS PAC. So you mentioned childcare, after school and et cetera, et cetera. I was just wondering, apologies, I was late. So if you've already covered it, that's my bad. Is it the same funding model, like basically a flat per head amount as it is for regular schooling? So it's the same funding model, but just a different stream, I would guess, based on registrations.
We haven't actually got that far yet. So right now, currently our before and after school care are more like pilot projects, I guess is the right way to put it. So right now they're actually going through special purpose funding. So it's not part of our regular operating grant right now. So we're getting, basically, again, for simplicity, a lump sum to spend on our specific before and after school care.
So basically how it works, like try to keep it pretty easy. We have 3 buckets of money. The first one is what we call a general operating grant, which is the model is based on the number of mainly the number of students that we have between at the end of September 30th
And
February, and basically that is the operating grant. Then we have the other one that we call a special
purpose funds.
grant, and that one we have several depending on different needs. Now, the challenge with that one is, again, there are specific rules is that you have to follow first to get the money. Second, we have to report how we're using the money. Also to consider in the special purpose grants is that we can receive it 1 year. It doesn't grant that we're going to keep receiving in the future. The third one is capital. Capital is basically to acquire tangible assets, and same thing, specific rules, and we cannot interchange and use as we wish. So talking about the one that you are referring is right now has been special purpose.
Thank you. That's very informative. Were you also talking about like preschool age care? Is that another pilot project that's ongoing right now, or is that, was I mishearing it? We're just talking about before and after for school age kids in the district.
Yeah,
May I speak to them?
well, go ahead.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
work with
just
Susan.
before and after at this point. Although we're going to be building a daycare, which may, yeah, that's down the road. That's a whole nother.
Yeah, maybe, maybe I can just help. Yeah, we're building two big projects. One is the new middle school. Largely funded through the Ministry of Education, and then we are also building a 144-seat childcare center across from the school board office. And that is also funded. We're moving forward on those. We anticipate that, you know, they'll open in April of 2027 and the school will open in September of 2027. And, you know, we know the demand out there is we'll fill the childcare center. The model of funding, the ministry has not told us whether it will be a per student grant. That's not settled yet. The Ministry of Education did receive their mandate letter from the Premier, and they passed it on to us. So the Ministry of Education has a number of priorities, and childcare and after-school care are certainly a priority for us as a Ministry of Education. Remember, this is new to us to take kids who are, you know, the primary years, like 6 months to 4, 5 years old. That's a new area for us. So.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like it will really be a solution to revenue challenges either, because it's essentially just a new task that's gonna have new funding. We're funding that, but,
With a balanced
and also
budget.
for building new buildings.
Yeah.
No revenue allowed, it will be
Yeah.
balanced,
Yeah.
yeah.
$10
$10 a day program.
Average of $10 a day in the province. Yeah, that's the goal.
Any other question?
I just want to thank you all. I know how much work goes into this, and thank you for this presentation tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for everyone, that's Kate Toy, the chair of the school district. Sorry, Kate, I forgot to introduce you at the beginning.
It's all good.
Okay, if there are no more questions, again, the best way to get your ideas and even questions and comments is the survey that's online. We tested it this afternoon. It's working. You can comment on that, and we'll see you again April 7th. March 4th, we'll see some of you. April 7th, we'll see all of you. Okay, thank you. Drive safely.
Thank you.
Thank you.